Please welcome head chef and co-owner Noma, René Redzepi, in discussion with Skift founder and chief executive officer, Rafat Ali.
All right, everyone, how's it going? Good? We're still working on the Wi-Fi, that's the update. So it's a huge honor for us to welcome René Redzepi to Skift Global Forum. It's our year one of starting to cover Skift Global Forum. And if anybody had told me 6 months ago that we had any shot at ever getting René year one when we start covering the business of dining, I would have said, you're crazy. And here you are. Thank you, Ben. Ben, who's your COO, spoke at our London conference, was great. And he said, let me try. And then he tried, and you're here. So for those of you, so I'm the least qualified person to have ever interviewed René on stage.
Great.
And
Great.
and they specifically asked for me, by the way, because what I do understand, hopefully, and we're going to discuss it, is some of the larger issues: inspiration, creativity, the idea of not being comfortable in a place for too long, the idea of trying to search for identity of a place and then trying to create something out of it, how he thinks creatively about working with nature and incorporating all the things. So I've been trying to get speed lessons on his philosophy over the last 2-3 months, watched a lot of documentaries as well, on Netflix, on iTunes, a bunch of them exist. And so you are, it would be fair to say, certainly one of the most influential chefs right now in the world. You've changed how people look at Nordic, Scandinavian cuisine in so many ways. You are known for going into a place and spending months and months and months there to try and find identity of a place. It's a very thing that it's a very dear thing to you to find the identity of a place.
Yeah.
Was same in Australia,
Yeah.
Tokyo, Mexico, which just
Mexico.
finished. What do you mean by identity? Like, what is, and a lot of people here are from the travel industry whose whole job is to market the identity of a place.
Yeah. I mean, it's a difficult question. I mean, I cook Nordic food, or that's what we are perceived to be cooking. But my family heritage is Albanian. My father is an immigrant. He fled the Yugoslav wars. I married a Jewish girl. I grew up with Turkish food. I never ate rye bread in my life.
What do you think of it now?
I like rye bread. Rye bread is good. So, you know, obviously here we are having this restaurant that somehow have put Scandinavia or the Nordics on the map in terms of its cuisine. And for some reason, I actually think it's been a good thing that I came from the outside, not having these things that seem everyday and common in me. You just value them in a different set. And it enabled us to look at things differently. Now, in terms of you know, monetizing this success, we've been open 14 years. I was 25 when we opened Noma. I'm 40 in 2 months.
Welcome to the other side.
Welcome to the other side, yeah. Well, once you get kids, it doesn't matter.
Anyway.
Then it's like, what you wish for is just sleep now, not age. I have 3 daughters. No, I mean, 14 years, and it's been incredible. I really enjoy what I do. You know, we have had many opportunities to do all sorts of things and travel and open restaurants all over the world. And there was even one of these hotel groups that said, we want to put one of your restaurants in every single of our hotels somewhere. But the thing we enjoy the most is, no, I would never do it. But the thing, because it's, why would you do it if you're happy with what you do? It would simply be for profit. And I'm not sure that necessarily correlates with actually enjoyment and being happy in what you do. So we are in a situation where we every day go to work and we are on the edge. We're trying to push. And we don't really know what's in front of us. We don't know how the road is going to be paved, but we are the ones paving it ourselves. And that's very satisfying. And it's satisfying to be part of a movement. It's satisfying to be in a place where 14 years ago, food was not a part of the gastronomical, not part of the reason why people traveled to Scandinavia. Now it's in top 5. And to see this, to have sous chefs, to have apprentices, to see them succeed, open restaurants, to actually feel that each year this is like, it's like a tree that just keeps becoming stronger and bigger. That's extremely gratifying beyond, having, I don't know, 1,000 employees or 2,000 and so on. But so you talked about this thing about how we search for an identity. So one of the ways that we try to keep ourselves on the edge is that we do pop-ups. I'm sure not all of you have heard of this, but each year we travel, for the past 3 years, we traveled around the world, and we travel everyone. We were just in Mexico. We brought almost 110 people there, our children, our spouses, and we researched 5 months Mexico. I've been to Mexico many times. It's my favorite place to visit and my favorite cuisine. And then we traveled for 3 months, and then we moved there, entire restaurant. We closed Copenhagen, and we sort of free-falled into this Mexican incredible food culture that in many, many, many ways completely dwarfs what we have in Scandinavia in terms of what people eat, how they eat on an everyday level. And doing so, going to a place, not knowing anything, to completely wiping away everything that you've done before, and starting again has been not only the best catalyzer for creativity, but it's been the best team building exercise you can imagine. It beats walking on hot coals.
So talk about the team building part, because that's very interesting.
But it's extraordinary. I mean, imagine that any of your company just closed where you are and you move somewhere else in the world. And you cannot do what you used to do at all. You have to do something completely different. The rule is you cannot do what you did back home. If you fall into that routine, it's already a failure. So none of the same dishes, none of the same routines. We built up from scratch a restaurant, and then we close it once we're done. And going together as a team, today when people come in at Noma, a restaurant, they've read about it, they know what's going on, they fall into a system. And when you go together and you're all like green novices, we don't really know what to do, and we all have to play a role in this. Everybody has to really participate in making this a success very quickly, because you arrive and then you open a month later, and then it has to perform on full cylinders. It's incredible. It's simply incredible. It's been the biggest professional experience of my life and the biggest personal experience of my life. I mean, my kids are fluent in English. They went to school in Japan. They went to school in Mexico. They went to public school in Australia. So and with all the other people, with all the other staff members too, and their children. It's something magic happens when you can go to work and you leave your family in the morning, and then you go to work, and it's not exactly family, but it's more than being colleagues.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would be, but it's something extraordinary.
Tribe.
And the pop-ups gave us this. They have given us this thing, and it becomes addictive. Traveling like that becomes addictive. Being a part of a system as opposed to a spectator, we've discovered as well, is so amazing.
At the end of the day, so like you just finished Mexico, and now you have thought through all the things that you did right, potentially maybe some of the things you did wrong.
Yeah.
Do you think you were able to capture the flavor of a place, and flavor I mean in a broader sense, not just the food sense? No,
not really. I mean, it would be stupid to say that we go to Mexico and we know the flavor of a place. I mean, this is thousands of year old food traditions. We just come as spectators and try to respect it as much as we can and be inspired by it and try to learn from it. Capture the flavor of the place, I mean, that's impossible. so like I said, I grew up eating Turkish food in Denmark. Can we capture the flavor of Mexico? Absolutely not. But when you fuse two things, when Scandinavia meets Mexico, and you're able to do your due diligence and your research, you really try to understand. And we went and spent days with small communities. It was not, we really tried to really investigate the roots of cooking, not just going to the fancy places. And then you allow for two cultures to meet and fuse, something amazing can happen. And it isn't the essence of a place. It isn't the flavor of a place. It's something different.
So the roots, and I'm going to take the literal meaning of the word roots, you are very attracted to the nature. This is what you've done with Noma over the years, bringing natural ingredients from forest or other more wild ingredients into your food. What makes you want to go there first, or is that?
This is how you connect at first. And this is something in the talks I've been listening to here, it's all very interesting to listen, but nobody's speaking about nature. It's all about brands and, consumer this and consumer that. I mean, what about nature? What are we doing with nature? How are you taking care of nature through your decisions with your 15,000 hotels and so on and so on? Nature is where you start. I truly believe that. You have to start there. If you don't, we went there to Mexico. It was extraordinary. Honestly, it was the best time of my life. And we worked very locally. We went into nature. We tasted food. We met the people. And every single thing that we had, somebody within the vicinity of 500 kilometers made for us. And if you go to Maya Rivera, from Tulum up to Cancun, if every single hotel did that, instead of ordering
continental food,
continental plates from made somewhere, it would be a revolution for that region. So nature can not only put you in a place in terms of flavor, but it can also guide you to make some real powerful decisions when you actually go and meet local people.
Do you think that there is a level of consciousness that's rising about local foods? Obviously, this is a debate only in America about food appropriation. For those of you who don't know, there's a bunch of controversies in Seattle and a bunch of other cities of chefs apparently taking other cultures' food and then passing it off, I don't know if as their own, but certainly creating restaurants out of it. Is that a fair criticism? Because food has been appropriated for centuries.
Yeah, it's a difficult one that is, it's a big thing here. I can only say that I have no wish to cook Mexican food, for instance, because I have not been raised with it. To me, it would be wrong to do so. But I do also strongly believe that if we come to a point where only people of its original culture can cook the original food, it's just some sort of nationalism that just permeates through everything that we do. But the people who are actually a part of cooking this, it has to be done with respect and with due diligence and in a way where there's something giving back, But we had that. There was people who said, "You are in Mexico, you can't be and cook here." And it was crazy to me. It's nothing.
A very famous reviewer in one of the very august newspapers here, that is one of the world's best-known newspapers, said that, did not show up.
Did not show up?
Pete Wells.
Yeah. It's like when in Denmark, the right-wing movement saying Denmark is for Danish people. It's just a strange form of nationalism that I don't agree with. But I do agree with respect and dignity and humanity and helping each other. But not to be open to other people, I would love for you to come to Denmark and be inspired by Denmark and say, what can I do here, Or to Albania or to Turkey, where I've also had some of my childhood. But it is, a very powerful question that needs more thinking and more investigation in how do you actually do this and how do you answer such very complex matters.
One of the other questions that comes up is food and restaurants, especially these days, as an engine to gentrification of different places in the world. You and I talked a little bit about how a lot of the places are beginning to look the same as a result. Like, for instance, coffee shops around the world are looking the same these days because they carry a certain Brooklyn, if you want to call it, aesthetic everywhere in the world. What's your view on the sameness in the world that's there's a sameness
In the food world?
In the food world.
Yeah, I mean, somebody spoke about Instagram, and I actually met Instagram's founder yesterday or 2 days ago. And I mean, somebody could blame Instagram for that, you know, maybe not just Instagram, but the way that information travels, the way that a snap, a pic is enough for you to have a feeling or to be inspired. And, you know, I mean, I like it like that because
we use it a lot.
We use it a lot, but also we are a product of this time.
Right.
You know, I'm 40 years old, and we've had incredible success that 50 years ago would take decades and decades and decades, because somebody would have to travel to Denmark and file a story, and 9 months later it'd be in Bon Appetit. And then from there on, one other would come, and you know, it was just so slow moving. And we came right when all the information started traveling.
You believe a lot in storytelling through the digital mediums, through Snapchat, through Instagram stories. I think you're doing a bunch as well. How are you thinking through telling stories even before people actually come to the restaurant, or they may never come to the restaurant?
I mean,
like you went to Faroe Islands, you just
we went to Faroe Islands. I think in our stories, what we try to focus when we have social media is to focus on craft and people and ingredients. And I think, you know, one of the main things that we always discuss within, not just within Noma, but within the nonprofit that we have that we call MAD, which means food in Danish, is talking about, you know, let's say food waste. And 50% of food gets wasted. I'm sure many of your hotel buffets will know this. But you know, why do you waste things? You waste things that you don't value. And why have we come to value food so little? Why is there no appreciation for this anymore? That we just throw away 50% of everything. So I find it very important to show people, show ingredients, show the people who are actually cooking, so you can see what lies behind all of this food, you know? And I think it's a powerful exercise to start thinking like that and start showcasing ingredients and the people who are actually making the food. And if you start thinking about it, if you were to have a fair system in which everyone involved in growing those ingredients were to have a middle-class lifestyle with a car and 2 kids and a house in the suburbs and annual vacation somewhere, how much more would food cost if everyone down the chain had to earn that? From the lorry driver to everything, food would be so expensive. You know, food is incredibly cheap because we make it so, and because there's no value towards the people who are actually making the food and growing it for us. It's shameful.
Do you care about making your output accessible, more accessible, beyond the people who can come to your restaurant, can afford to come to your restaurant?
I never used to think that I would care, but ever since we became a restaurant Noma with a platform, I do think you have to care. I think you have to.
So will there be a more, I know you're experimenting with some of the, some different formats as well. Would you think there will be a, for lack of a better word, lower priced Noma that would be?
I didn't mean it like that more restaurants. No, I just mean by actually sharing, telling.
And I'm talking about, like, if I am not able to afford Noma in a normal life, is there a way for me to be able to get your?
There's always, I mean, Noma can only be Noma.
You have no desire.
I am very happy with what I do. I mean, there are some of our sous chefs that we helped open restaurants, but it's their restaurants. It's not like mine places. I'm still very happy doing Noma. If I could choose, I would tell my staff that I have right now that they have to stay for the next 20 years because I just want to do this for the next. It's really, I have the best job in the world.
But the other thing that it came up from some of the documentaries that I watched, you're very obsessed with not ever being comfortable. Like you have this thing, like you want to be uncomfortable and then you're going to move. Like you want to move away from being very comfortable. You talked in one of your documentaries.
Well, comfortable or routine. To me, routine is the killer of creativity. It's extremely comforting and you can very quickly be lulled into sleep by good routine. And then for a place like Noma, it doesn't function. You need to be on the edge. The day that we're not there, it's over. I mean, we'd probably still be full and, you know, and so on, but we don't have, it's not there yet. So it's not there anymore, you know?
So Noma 2 that you're opening, I think, in January at this point, are you thinking about a fixed lifespan for it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't believe I mean, we built the next Noma in a way that in 10 years, if we want to do something else, it's flexible. If it should be a school or just be a business of sorts or rent it out to someone else, we can do that. Or if we want to make it into, well, a more casual restaurant, you know, we can also do that. I mean, in fact, the pop-up started because 3 years ago, we decided that we're going to close our old edition of Noma to open a new place. And we decided that because we were starting to fall into routine. It was starting to be a little bit too easy to just go to work and here's a menu and people are happy.
But
we
if
weren't
the people
searching.
are happy.
Nah, it's not enough. It's not enough. It just isn't. It's hard to explain. And so, but looking into the future of moving into a new place, I was like, well, what if we just go to the new place and we do what we did before? How can we actually see fresh opportunity with the same stuff that we've been cooking with for the last 10 years?
What's your favorite?
And that's why we did the pop-ups.
What's your favorite ingredient? I'm not a chef, but I will say this.
Yeah.
I like cilantro.
The favorite ingredients. I mean,
one.
You know, as a chef, it's probably the worst question in the entire planet.
I told you I was the least qualified person.
I can't choose.
You don't have
one.
it.
No,
Okay.
I mean,
all right, let's move on.
Yes, let's move on.
Bring it back a little bit to travel, because a bunch of people here in the industry. You did your residency in Tokyo at one of the hotels, Mandarin Oriental. What did you learn about hospitality out of that? Would you do it again?
Oh, I would do it again and again and again. Yes. We're addicted to doing these pop-ups. It's
in a hotel.
In a hotel, ooh.
What did you learn about hotels there that you said, I'm never going to do this shit again?
I mean, I loved our time there. I really did. And I think people were so professional. And, you know, we tested it out beforehand at Claridge's in London, where also it's more professional. But when you fall into an institution and, you know, there's standard and rules and regulations that are all set from some place 1,000 kilometers away, and everybody has to act in a certain way and do it. And then at the same time, they're told, act yourself, you know. It was no. I mean, if I could choose, I would not do it in a hotel again. I would always be free.
And here's what Ben's saying: it's a great business for us because it's going to be a lot cheaper, and it's going to be everything's going to be taken care of. Oh
yeah, I mean that's the great thing about it. And don't get me wrong, we loved our time at the Mandarin in Tokyo. It wasn't that. It's just it's like.
Constricting?
It's like you're in a box in a way. You can't breathe, you can't move, you know, at least the way that we used to.
Right. We are going to do questions. It's about a minute before we start the questions. Obviously, go into Slido and the app if you want to ask a question. You've said that you don't view Noma as a restaurant, you view it as a research facility.
Well, I mean, it's just, you know, of course it's a restaurant. We sell a meal every night, and every lunch, but I prefer to think of it as a place where we experiment and we ferment and we forage
and you fail most of the times, and then
and we do all sorts of stuff, and then we have people that come and taste these experiments.
You've
in a
said
way.
one of your people in one of the documentaries that we fail 99% of the time before you open,
Yeah.
and then we find the right thing.
Yeah, that's more or less the right way to look at it. Maybe the ratio is a little bit better now as we're, more clever. But it is. I mean, it's very difficult to do that. And people, a lot of things have been said about failure, and it is important. It's important also to accept it, even though that it's hard. And it's important to set a space in which failure is not something that brings you down, but that can actually fuel you. And that's the most difficult thing. I'm not sure I can explain this, but I mean, I'm sure most people here know this. When you fail and you're like, oh, fuck, I don't want, my life is over, it's horrible. And it's like, oh, I'm never, just forget about it then, right? But how do you keep going and keep going? And then when it's very painful, you keep going. And then when you think now it's complete maximum, you keep going. Mm-hmm. And then when it hurts even more than that, and you're so like, it's 2 a.m, you keep going. And then you learn yourself techniques for, when the team is completely in a funk and they can't breathe and move.
And your
then what do you
huge
do
role
to
is
step out of
motivation.
that?
Is your role in huge ways motivating the team in face of those failures?
I'm 50% good at that and 50% horrible at that.
Why the 50% horrible?
Because it's when you're on that edge and you're under pressure, and our restaurant, despite the notoriety, it's not a financially super stable business. So there's all these pressures, and then your kids didn't sleep, and then sometimes you're not a nice boss,
We have time for some questions. I know it's going to come up here. I think the iPad is not working properly. Oh my God. Would you ever open to developing food for airline passengers? Mm. I think, okay, we know the answer to that one.
I mean, I don't have anything against producing food for a lot. I wish that I could think of a system in which you could have quality for thousands and thousands of people. I respect people, a lot that can do that. I don't think you can do that. What if you became the CEO of McDonald's?
Do you eat fast food?
Are
your kids spoiled for food choices? Do they think that they're supposed to?
We eat, we cook. We come from both two families that cook. My wife, her mother lives with us. There's meals cooked, lunch, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and we work a lot. But getting to cook, of course, is like starting to exercise. It's not easy at first, but then you get it. What if you became the CEO of McDonald's?
Would be possible.
I wouldn't know. But I think any business today, if they are not starting to look at the output, how their business is actually taking care of the climate, how they are green, sustainable type of business, are they really thinking actively about that? If I were that, I would guide McDonald's to that direction for sure, and then close half of them probably.
Is there a TV show in development about you? And if not, can you please consider it?
We've had many offers, but it's very time consuming, so not right now, no.
How do you get involved in training the front of the house team, and how do chefs help drive enthusiasm with service teams? This looked like an editorial question that
we built a system from when we opened, which is all chefs have to serve. And it came out of actually not having enough servers. But then it ended up being an incredible way to fuse two typically very torn teams. And And today it's completely, we're together, and when we do our research trips, the waiters do their research trips. But it is a problem, service is a problem in any restaurant trade. And I've told the restaurant manager we have that's been with us since we opened that, you know, they should write a manual or do something. I mean, codify service, the different styles. It's hard to talk about service because there's nothing ever thought about it from a sort of a philosophical standpoint. What is it, and what are the styles throughout the world, and how do you conduct it? We need to do something for service. It is too much of an ad hoc type of thing you just stumble into, and then some are good, but most people.
Last question, because we're out of time, but I really like the second question. What one tip would you give to people who want to ditch their corporate jobs and want to open a restaurant or cafe? I'm sure you've never gotten that question.
Well, I mean, it's difficult because I come from a very simple background. My father was an immigrant, as I told you, as simple as it gets in Scandinavia. And so if you have a corporate job where you're used to making a lot of money and then going scared, you're not going to have a lot of money. That's basically it. So
all right.
If you can live with that, then you're going to be part of one of the most amazing industries. You can be a community leader. You can work with people that have their hands in the soil. Every day you will be producing something. And it's incredibly gratifying to take a knife and start chopping, and at the end of the day, 2 hands forward, here you go.
All right. At that note, thank you very much.